Well, thanks for joining us, Dave, for a bit of an end-of-season look at the injury list and also looking ahead to the off-season and pre-season plans. Might start off with looking at some of the guys who might be having surgery or have had surgery so far.
Yeah, look, it was an unusual season for us. We had a lot of surgeries in season, so our guys actually don't need a lot of surgery at the end. We had sort of Gorney, Paddy McKenna, Joel Smith, Dean Kent all having surgery, in season, Colin Garland. So really the only one who's come up at our end of season medicals was Tom McDonald. So he's actually having a scope on both ankles. So he's had his right one done last week and the left one will be done, I think, the end of next week. So that's, just a typical arthroscope for the ankle, just cleaning up some bone spurs. So we expect that he'll be back full training before Christmas, hopefully.
A couple of the guys who obviously were talked about at the end of the season with their injuries was Jack Viney and Jesse Hogan, and there's a little bit of conjecture over whether they'd play if finals were made. Where are they at, and how would have they gone? Yeah,
look, Jesse, just with that hamstring, he was pretty close to coming back and actually, playing again after half time, but he just wasn't really confident, with his flat out sprinting, so he didn't want to risk that. But he would have been pretty close to playing this weekend if, obviously we had made it. Jack, on the other hand, would have really been touch and go. He was still pretty sore, had another scan on that foot, and while there didn't show to be, a crack in the bone in that toe, there was, that toe was still pretty hot. There was a lot of pressure there. So, he's back on the crutches and in a boot for another couple of weeks, and we'll gradually sort of wean him back to load bearing on that foot. But we obviously want to take an opportunity now to really let that heal and make sure that he has an uninterrupted run during the pre-season.
So do you look to sort of resting both of those guys a bit in the lead up to the pre-season, or still sort of really rehabbing them a bit?
Yeah, look, Jesse, our program, the first 3 weeks is an active rest period anyway. So that'll allow that hamstring essentially to heal. So he'll really just go into a normal off-season program. So that'll be okay. Jack, on the other hand, is going to be a bit of a longer time off his legs and a more gradual progression once he does start, loading and running. So, he'll be in the rehab group pretty much probably up to Christmas, I'd say.
There were 7 guys in the end whose seasons had finished and they were out injured. Might take a look at those guys and run through them and how they're progressing at the moment, all in different stages. Might start off with Aaron Vandenberg.
Yeah, look, just this morning, I was with Aaron. He's doing his last session on the anti-gravity treadmill, running at about 90% body weight. So his next session on Monday is out on the grass. He's going really well. He notices a big difference since the operation. Pain he was getting in his foot continually, really over a 12-month period's disappeared. So we're really happy with where he's at. He's excited to hopefully be able to attack a pre-season pain-free. So he's going well.
Dean Kent?
Yeah, Kenty, is improving his range in that shoulder and doing a fair bit of strength work. He's not far away from being able to start running. That's one advantage of obviously having a shoulder injury, is that you can do a lot of running. So, he's earmarked the off-season and pre-season to really get himself in good nick.
Joel Smith?
Yeah, Joel's walking around, so he's off the crutches just with that knee. It'll be a little bit of time, probably another 3 to 4 weeks before he starts to run and really put some load through it, but he's tracking well.
Tim Smith?
Yeah, Tim still in the boot, but he's been able to throw the crutches away. Obviously the navicular is a pretty important bone in the foot and can go south if you start loading it too quickly. So again, we'll take a little bit more time with Tim and make sure that that bone is really strong again before we start loading it.
Colin Garland?
Yeah, look, Garlo really is going well. He's out running, doing good work in the gym, and he's looking pretty good for the pre-season.
Paddy McKenna?
Again, Paddy had a really good session out there this morning, has run virtually flat out. So we're at a point with Paddy where we're just going to hand him the normal off-season program and he's going to sort of do that. He'll probably need, 1 or 2 weeks in rehab when the group comes back, but it's more just to assess where he's at with his hamstring strength, to make sure that everything's going okay, and then he'll really be back with the main group, a couple of weeks into the pre-season.
And Lockie Filipovic.
Yeah, Lockie's another one who did some Alter G running on the treadmill this morning at about 90%. He's another week or so away from running outside, but things are tracking well with his hip. He's looking to have a big pre-season.
What's the off-season plan for the guys? What do you sort of give them, and what do they have to go away and do?
Look, essentially, they get 3 weeks off, 3 or 4 weeks off, and then there's a couple of weeks where we call it an intro program, where they start, reintroducing their body to some running and some weights. And then pretty much they have a 4-week main conditioning block, where they're running 3 times a week, lifting 3 times a week, and really looking to use that month to get themselves into good nick so that when they do come back, they can really hit the ground running. The days of sort of guys coming back, overweight, out of shape, and really using the pre-Christmas period to get fit are long gone. Our expectation is that they come back and, they're almost running PBs in their time trials, the first 1 or 2 weeks of pre-season, so that we can then, launch again and see some improvement year on year, with each player.
How difficult, or I guess easy, is that to sort of marry up between the rest period and giving the programs to make sure that they're ready to go for the start of pre-season?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously it's been a long year, and we've got a young group who, play a pretty high intensity brand of football, and probably saw them flagging just a little bit towards the end of the year. So that's something that we're really conscious of, making sure that they do get enough rest in the off season, and then planning the pre-season so that they're not ready to play games by December. But we're gradually progressing their preparation towards good solid footy, February, March, April. So yeah, look, it is a balancing act, but we feel we've got the mix pretty right.
And what do you make of the thoughts that, people after a season where it's so many positives but a really disappointing end? There's sort of that theory of flog them hard, and that's the sort of traditional sort of mentality, but it's a long way removed from that these days. How do you go about getting that sort of taking them to the next level, but being realistic, but pushing them as far as you go? In sort of today's football and in sports science and conditioning, how do you go about that?
Yeah, look, essentially the club was absolutely gutted, with the way it ended, and players, staff, coaches, everyone. And that's sort of held on to that a little bit, for a couple of weeks, and we're hoping that that disappointment's going to drive the players to really take their preparation to another level. For us, as a coaching and high performance group in particular, we're looking at our program and looking at every possible way that we can take it to the next level. So in a way, to me, and that's where I see the benefit, if there is any, of missing out, is that it's really made us reflect on every little part of our program and decide, what can be improved, what can be tweaked. And perhaps, if you make finals and you even win a final or two, you may not be as hard on yourself and on your program as you would be with the way, it actually did finish. So I see that as the only positive, but it could be a significant positive for us moving forward. And as I say, everyone was absolutely gutted, but the flip side is we're really strongly committed to making it a real line in the sand moment for the footy club, and making sure that we can reset and make everything better.
If you could sort of, I guess in a nutshell, sort of talk about the pre-season plans in defining how it'll be, how hard, or I guess, however you want to term it, how would you sort of assess the upcoming pre-season? Yeah,
look, it's not going to be a quantum leap, with too many things. We're really going to focus. I know Simon's really keen to keep focusing on fundamental skills, kicking and handball tackling, shape work. So really nailing the fundamentals, because we felt probably towards the end of the season we gave the ball back too much, and that was one of the reasons that we were working so hard, because our turnovers were pretty high. From a conditioning and strength point of view, it's really, as I say, looking for that year-on-year improvement with the players, We've got a core group of, third, fourth, fifth year players who we feel we can get a lot of improvement out of. So there's going to be a really strong focus on those guys. But from a structural point of view and the content, not a lot's going to change. It's still going to be a really footy-directed program. As I say, we're going to, we hope the guys come back in really good shape so we can start to move towards a more specific, individualised conditioning program. But yeah, we won't be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We'll, stick to our plans.
All right, Dave. Well, thanks for catching up and all your help this year. It's been fantastic for your insights and all the best for the pre-season.
Thanks, mate.